We're excited to announce that our very own podcasting platform, Zencastr, has become a new sponsor to the show. Check out the podcast's discount link in our show notes and stay tuned for why we love using Zen for the podcast.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Wait, are you bringing it in or am I?
No, you bring it in.
Okay.
I'm leaving that in too.
Damn you.
Hello and welcome to the Archaeotech Podcast, episode 145. I'm your host, Chris Webster, with my co-host, Paul Zimmerman. Today, we discuss gifts that work for archaeology that we got this winter and announce a contest winner. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the first episode of 2021, everybody. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Glad that 2020 is over. Don't have a whole lot of hope that the start of 2021 is going to be much easier, but nothing catastrophic has happened in the last week or two, and we had nice holidays. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Pretty chill for the most part. Managed to squeeze a quarantine wedding in, which was interesting. It was all local people who had, basically quarantined together for the most part. So that was interesting. For the most part, Christmas, New Year's, pretty chill. I was talking to somebody just earlier today that were saying, one of my clients, they were like, you know what, this is kind of the dream. They were like, this is the best Christmas I've ever had. Didn't have to drive anywhere, deal with traffic, do anything. We just woke up, had a chill morning and afternoon, and then, that was it. So I know people miss family, but yeah, sometimes Christmas is really stressful because a lot of people travel. And if you don't travel, if you're not the one traveling, you're the one getting a lot of people over to your house. And just the whole thing is, can be stressful for people. So
it can be stressful, It can be overblown, a lot of planning, a lot of expenses, a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I think you're right. A lot of people did like these holidays that they could just kind of not do anything and have a perfectly good excuse for not doing anything special.
Yeah, totally. So, all right. Well, we've got a number of things we're going to talk about today. So, the first thing, we're going to bring up a listener email in response to our space archaeology episode. We're going to talk about what we got for the holidays. And, we talked on our last episode, it was a really short one, and we were just like, hey, we're going to talk about this next time. So let's do that. So Paul and I are going to talk about some of the things that we got for the holidays that may be applicable to archaeology in one way or another. Or not, who knows? And then at the end of the show, we will announce the winner of our contest that we announced last time, which was basically send us a comment on one of our places where you see this podcast and let us know what you got that could be used for archaeology and how you plan on doing that and what it is. And we put you in a contest for a free lifetime membership, basically, to the Archaeology Podcast Network membership system, which is a pretty good deal because the thing has fluctuated quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm sure it's going to fluctuate in the future, and we get more members in there, it'll get better, and you'll already be a member. So that'll be pretty cool. And, even if you're a current member, we'll just, take away your fees and make it free. So there you go.
Nice.
All right. So let's talk about this email first. This email is from James, and James has commented on some other podcast stuffs, and I don't want to give away, too much information. I like to maintain privacy, but I know that, and he's told me I could say this before, but he works at NASA. So James has some knowledge of inner workings and things like that. And his comment on our space archaeology episode, I'm just going to paraphrase here. Basically, he's talking about restricting landings near the Apollo sites or USSR or Chinese sites. Basically, I would almost say any moon landing site at this point, because they're all special because we haven't done it that much. So if we're going to send space tourists up there or other missions to the moon, we have to be really conscious of these things, because he says that the blast ejecta from the lander does not only blow away footprints and other things, but it fires regolith, which is the lunar dust, at such high speeds, some can go into orbit, it says. This erodes the vehicles if nearby and at poor angles. And he's been working on this for another program for NASA right now. So that's something to think about. The moon has different gravity and like almost no atmosphere. When stuff blows out, it doesn't blow out in an arc and then land out. I mean, it can, if it doesn't reach orbit, it will land somewhere. But this stuff can go into orbit. It can shoot at high speeds out in virtually a straight direction with very little fall off and hit other things and damage them. And it's just something that we didn't really discuss in that space archaeology episode. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, it's something that I wouldn't have really thought of until it was mentioned to me, and that's very obvious. But it's also it's kind of like the idea of, when people fire guns in the air in celebration, not realizing that bullet's coming back down at the same speed that it went up.
Yeah, exactly.
whatever it loses with air resistance. But on the moon, you don't really have the air resistance. So those dust particles fire off and don't slow down and don't stop and don't change directions until they hit something. And of course, if that something is a piece of historical lunar landing equipment, it's going to be damaging it over time. So very interesting comment from him. And again, he works on this very project. So he's somebody in the knows, and I really appreciate that input.
Yeah. And he also mentions on the flip side of things that if there is no disturbance, like there's no meteorite impacts or anything like that to the moon, or, is it called a meteorite on the moon too? Because I know a meteor is in the air, and meteorites are after they are exposed to the Earth's atmosphere and, come down to the ground. That's why we can find meteorite fragments, but it's a meteor before it hits the atmosphere. But since the moon doesn't really have an atmosphere, is it still a meteor? Or is it a meteorite only after it impacts? I don't know. Who knows? Anyway, if you don't have, I know, right? I'm sure I'll get an email on that too. Please, James. Anyway, he's saying things like the footprints on the moon have a potential to be there for millions of years if left undisturbed. Because again, there's no wind, there's no atmosphere, and wind and water are the two primary elements that erode things on the Earth's surface, right? Or any surface with an atmosphere. Wind and water, right? Two things the moon just simply doesn't have. So you can create artificial disturbances, by landing near them and causing that blast ejecta, like he said, or natural disturbances like meteors, meteorites, whatever you want to call them, hitting the surface and then either destroying the site or, having that blast ejecta cover it or move it around or something like that. But if that doesn't happen, and statistically it's probably not, I mean, a lot of the moon landing sites were chosen because of their lack of things like that. So maybe they're just like lucky spots. I don't know. Anyway, it says they have a potential to be there for millions of years. And he says rolling boulder tracks on the moon that have not been filled in for even longer, like boulders that have moved around for other reasons like that, meteorites and stuff. He also says that, we can't guarantee anything lasts forever, but if we protect it, then, it basically can. So anyway, that's pretty cool.
The potential longevity of the footprints made me think of the Latoleaf Plateau footprints, right? Yeah, preserved totally. in volcanic ash. Right? Millions of years old. Very important to our understanding of human evolution. I don't know that Apollo footprints would have any import for somebody's understanding of human evolution 2 million years from now, but I certainly can't rule that out. We talk a lot about heritage, and we talk about what things we do now or what things people have done in the past and how we affect them now are going to be viewed in the future. And this is definitely something to consider with respect to these lunar landing sites.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, let's talk about some fun stuff. What do you say?
Oh, I'm all for that.
So we're going to talk about what we got for the holidays. And honestly, I mean, my wife and I live in an RV now, so we exchanged very few things. I bought her a couple things that I might end up using for archaeology, but and I might mention that. But I mean, essentially, I bought her a new MacBook Pro because she was rocking her old MacBook Air that was like from 2010 or 11 or something like that. It was just not cutting it anymore. And we actually gave that to my mother-in-law because she had an even older one. And so and she uses it for very few things. So this will help her out. But my wife's been helping me with some editing and some other things, and the computer just wasn't working out. So I got her that. And
is that one of the new M1 MacBook Pros?
No, so it's not brand new.
Okay.
It came from a guy who bought a new M1, but this is a late 2019 MacBook Pro that he had barely used. He's a Mac Power user, goes to WWDC, the developer conference every year. He's an Apple developer and takes really good care of his stuff. And he sold it, and this thing was stacked. Like it's the 17-inch, I think, that was has a 500 gigabyte hard drive or 5
SSD.
What is that number? Yeah, 5. Yeah, 12. The SSD drive. Yeah, 512. That's what it is. And couldn't think of it. And it's just got, I can't remember the other stats, but it's stacked. It's really good. And we got it from him for $1,800, which I'll tell you what, brand new, this thing was $3,000. So for a computer that's basically less than a year old for $1,800, it was a steal. I could not do it. So anyway, I'm sure that I will benefit from that as well. Although mine's only a 2017, so I have no reason to not use it. But
well, let me tell you,
it's a noticeable difference.
Because we have to test out new models of computers before the next school year, before we do our big buys. We purchased 5 5-pack of the new M1 MacBook Airs. And that's why I swapped out my 2018 MacBook Air that was my primary work computer for this M1. And holy cow, these things are snappy. I mean, really unbelievably quick to react to things. Yeah. And they've gone back to the old style keyboard with the inverted T arrow keys, which for me, programming was huge because I could never find those arrow keys properly when I had to, scroll up and down in text documents. And now it's much easier to use. I'm really, really, really enjoying this new computer.
Nice.
So when you're ready to get one, hopefully there's going to be more native M1 software out there for you. And I think you're going to really like that.
Well, to be honest, what I'm waiting for is the M1 iPad, because that is going to be the point. Well, to back up just a little bit. So my wife's new computer came with Big Sur on, and I actually hadn't upgraded to Big Sur on my 2017, and I just did it yesterday. And now that I've upgraded to Big Sur, I love the aesthetic of it. I love what they've done. They made some really big changes to this operating system and just how the look and feel. For the first time that I can ever remember, they even changed the sounds. Like the trash sound is different. Some of the notifications. But it's the little things that you notice. I mean, that sound has been like that for many generations of the operating system. Mm-hmm. And some of the changes they made were just really nice, really slick. And I'm really, really, really enjoying it. And I'm still... If Richie Cruz is listening to this, he'll be shaking his head at me right now. But I told him like 5 years ago that I'm never buying a laptop again. It's going to be all tablets. And then I bought this MacBook Pro. Then I bought my wife one 2 weeks ago. And I've got my iPad 12.9 inch sitting right next to me here. And I use it all the time. But the only thing I really have a hard time with it on is I can't do some of the stuff that just doesn't have an iPad app, like particularly podcast editing or really detailed video editing. Now, there are corresponding apps for the iPad, but to be honest, they're just not as good, right? They're just not there yet. So when I can run regular desktop applications on this tablet, which the chip architecture being the same, and then as the OSs get closer and closer, that's why I mentioned Big Sur, very close to an iPad operating system in look and feel. Mm-hmm. As those get closer and the architecture gets closer, people aren't going to have to code for the iPad. It will just work. And that's what I'm waiting for. So
yeah. Now for me, it's kind of the opposite direction. I'm not waiting for particular big applications to run on the iPad. I still can't use a pad as a tablet of any kind as my primary machine because I do a lot of my work on the command line. I can definitely, there are command lines for Android tablets, and I've talked about them on older episodes of this podcast. But until I either don't need to do that or until I can do that on an iPad, I'm going to be happily using laptops for the rest of my life.
I hear you. And I feel like I've seen some stuff like that for iPad, but I just don't know what the functionality would be. Because it's something I heard about that with an iPad refresh coming in a few months here, which is what the rumor mill is saying, like an early spring iPad refresh. And I don't know if we'd see a new chip then or not, but some of the other things they're talking about are not really what you said, Paul, but I think we're getting closer to that, like multi-screen support, being able to essentially hook extra monitors up to your iPad and just use it as like a docking station. I mean, that's getting pretty serious and doing a lot of the computery type things that you would expect. So I wouldn't be surprised if you'd be able to do that on a tablet before too long, the things that you want to do. So who knows? Well, that's my first one, basically. I didn't even have it on our checklist because I didn't think about it, but I think we got time for the end of the segment to go through one of your things, Paul.
Okay, yeah. I put a whole bunch of things down. We didn't actually do a very extravagant. Yeah. Please leave that in. We didn't actually do a very extravagant Christmas this year because we're stuck at home because of my son's death, because everything else. But my daughter came down and we had a very nice little Christmas, the three of us, my wife, my daughter, and I. Prior to Christmas, I told them I don't want anything. But my wife listened actually. She doesn't normally listen to this podcast, but she listened to the Buyer's Guide episode, which was 143. And she decided that she was going to try to get me a Forestry Suppliers gift card.
Nice.
And she backed out of that because she couldn't do it entirely online. She waited till too late and she had to buy it to get mailed to me. And she thought, she didn't want to risk that it wasn't going to get to us in time for Christmas. We'd had really terrible postal service delivery for a bit now, owing to COVID, obviously. then she looked at a list I had on my Amazon account, and she saw something there, which also was kind of something I did mention on that episode. She got me a new lens for my camera. So she got me a 24 millimeter f1.7 lens for my micro 4/3 mirrorless camera, a thing that I got for myself the camera I got for myself for my birthday in June. And so she got me this lens, which is really nice because I had the kit lens, which is a zoom, and I had a slightly longer lens that came with the camera. I bought it on a special. Also a zoom, but this 24 millimeter on the micro 4/3, which is a sensor size of the mirrorless camera that I have, that's basically the same as a 50 millimeter lens on an old 35 millimeter film camera. Okay. So that used to be the stock bog standard lens. This one in particular is f1.7, which isn't super fast, but it's a faster lens than anything else I have right now that attaches to this new camera. I have faster lenses from when I shot film. I have a fair amount of money invested in old glass that I can't especially use anymore. But it was nice to have this because, well, I said fast. I'm just going to interject a little tech here. When we're talking about cameras, about lenses, f is the aperture, so the f stops. The smaller the number, f1.7 in this case, means the bigger the hole will be to let in light, which means that you can have a faster shutter speed and let in a certain amount of light. So it has the secondary effect that you can then, the narrower the aperture, the wider the depth of field, the wider the area that's in focus is. So if you have a small number that is a very large aperture, so in my case, f1.7, that means I can get a very narrow focus band. So that's really nice for things like portraits, where you want the person's eyes in focus and everything behind them and in front of them in a kind of soft focus. And, there's certainly with the iPhones, there are ways that that's done in software and with multiple cameras. But this is the old school way of doing it, is through having a fairly fast lens with glass. And so now I've got one that's good. I can also use it in lower light conditions, which is a secondary effect for it. So I'm happy. I haven't used it much. I've just taken a couple pictures to test it out. But I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. And that came because actually she listened to an episode for a change.
There you go. There wasn't any prompting from you on, hey, we just did a buying guide episode. Just letting you know.
No, actually, I teased you about having Rachel listen to it, but I didn't tell Yelena, listen to this if you want some ideas. I'm sure I mentioned what the podcast episode was on. Otherwise, why would she have gone and looked?
Sure.
But yeah, so she went and did that. And that was a really nice surprise gift. I wasn't expecting it.
Well, I would like to hear from other listeners through comments or emails or whatever. Did you guys benefit from our buying guide episode? I really like to know that because, I like to do those every year and hope people actually get something out of it, because there's nothing I hate more than useless gifts, like people just buying gifts for the heck of it, just because they feel the need to give a gift. And then that just perpetuates having too many things and doing stuff. And if we can get something useful for you, then I'm all for it. So I love it. I'm glad she listened. So that's really cool.
Well, useless little gift, not useless, but as just a kind of a quickie. My daughter asked me what I wanted, and I said, don't get me anything. She insisted, so I told her to get me a field magnifier. So she got me a little $10 field magnifier. And that, as any field archaeologist knows, is something that just lives in your dig bag as part of your kit. Nothing special, but totally, well, it's always been for me. I just don't seem to be able to find my old one anymore. It's not a nice one. It's not a Bosch and Lomb or something like that. It's just a no-name Chinese one with a little LED underneath it. But I've actually used it at my workbench a couple of times, and I think it'll come in handy. And
nice.
I'll explain after the break why I think it might come in handy.
Awesome. Well, let's do that and talk about that on the other side of the break. Back in a minute. Chris Webster here for the Archaeology Podcast Network. We strive for high quality interviews and content so you can find information on any topic in archaeology from around the world. One way we do that is by recording interviews with our hosts and guests located in many parts of the world all at once. We do that through the use of Zencastr. That's Zencastr. Zencastr allows us to record high quality audio with no stress on the guest. Just send them a link to click on and that's it. Zencastr does the rest. They even do automatic transcriptions. Check out the link in the show notes for 30% off your first 3 months, or go to zencastr.com and use the code Archaeotech. That's ARCHAEOTECH. Looking to expand your knowledge of X-rays and imaging in the archaeology field? Then check out An Introduction to Paleoradiography, a short online course offering professional training for archaeologists and affiliated disciplines. Created by archaeologist, radiographer, and lecturer James Elliott, the content of this course is based upon his research and teaching experience in higher education. It is approved by the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists as 4 hours of training. That's in the UK, for those of you that don't know. So don't miss out on this exciting opportunity for professional and personal development. For more information on pricing and course structure, visit paleoimaging.com. That's PALEO imaging.com, and look for the link in the show notes to this episode.
Hi, welcome back to the Architect Podcast, episode number 145. Today we're talking about, hey, what kinds of archaeological, technological gifts did you get over the holidays? And I was going on about what I got, because I got a couple cool things. But just before the break, I said I got a field magnifier for my daughter. I actually told her to get me one. But the reason why it might be useful for me is that on the buying guide episode, 143, I suggested that one kind of nice gift for an archaeologist would be getting a membership to a local museum or to an archaeological association. And so I ended up giving myself a gift by taking my own advice, and I got myself a membership to the Institute for the American Indian Studies, which is a small museum and research center near me. They're located in Connecticut, but near my house in Brewster. Very short distance as the crow flies, but there's a long lake between me and them, so it's like a 45-minute drive. Anyhow, I followed it up by contacting the people there and asking if I could volunteer to help in their labs. And so I had a very pleasant meeting with their assistant director and another couple of volunteers there. And they showed me around their storerooms and what was coming in, what was going out, gave me a nice tour of the museum. And yeah, hopefully starting in January, I'm going to be going there on weekends to assist with them. Nice. So I feel good about that. I'm happy with that. Another just very brief point here is that when I went to go put that field magnifier that my daughter got me in my dig bag, I pulled out my compass and I decided I wanted to set the magnetic declination on it. So I did a quick Google search. I was like, what is the declination in Brewster, New York? I did a quick Google search, and the top hit was an NOAA site that if you do it on your phone, it asks to use your compass. It needs to geolocate, but it'll show you the magnetic north and the declination. They're very easy to read, very quick, no guesswork, and also arrows, so you can see it visually too. It doesn't just say plus or minus 13 degrees. It shows you. So I quickly programmed that in, dialed it in on my compass. But since I had my phone out, I decided to look at what the phone said, what the compass said on my phone, on my iPhone, because it's got a built-in compass app. And it was showing my house aligned directly north-south when I knew that wasn't right. I knew that it was off a little bit by magnetic north. And I was wondering why. And as I looked at it a little closer, I realized that my compass on my phone was giving me true north as opposed to magnetic north. And that surprised me a little bit. So I dug in a little bit, and I found that in the settings, if you go into the settings on iOS and you go down to the compass, there's a little switch in there to turn it to point either to magnetic north or to true north. So the compass app on the phone was already accounting for the declination, but it just wasn't displaying that in any obvious way. We'll put this link to the NOAA site in the show notes, because I think that this is actually an extremely useful tool. It's a very, very well done little website that you just open it up, give it permission to say where you are, and it shows you exactly what the declination is for your location. I think that's extremely useful for field archaeologists.
Yeah, people don't think about declination a lot. I don't know why, but you often find people not thinking about declination a lot when they're using their compass, and you could be off by, a lot if you don't think about it and you don't set it, And then we've talked about it before. If you put putting your compass in a hand with a lot of metal, if you wear a lot of rings or something, or if you wear a smartwatch, that'll also throw it off. So.
Oh yeah, actually, I noticed that with my when I was wondering why my phone was showing a different north than my compass was, that as I moved them close together, the phone didn't change. The phone always showed exactly the same, but my compass would go and start pointing at the phone. Yeah. But the declination has always been something that's always been kind of mysterious. I mean, I know why it is, but where you find appropriate current information has always been a bit mysterious to me. I'd looked up in the past and found websites, but it's all text-based. And that NOAA one is visual, which really helped me.
Right.
Just as further aside, the first time we went to Yemen in 94, I had no idea what the declination was, but I had to set up a sight grid. So we went out in the middle of the night and I sighted off Polaris to get a true north. And we used that to set our benchmark and a back sight way off in another field. So it would have been easier had I had access to something like this. I don't know, actually, given NOAA, I don't know if this would have worked in Yemen. I'd like to try it. It's hard to say. And if I try it, maybe I'll go back to the storeroom in Sayun and the museum in Sayun, Yemen, and find my old field magnifier, which I'm pretty sure I left in with a bag of shirts while I was looking at the temper.
Nice. I thought you said a bag of shirts. It like skipped a second there and was like, he left it in a bag of shirts? That's weird. No, shirts.
Better than a bag of sharts.
Oh my God. That's where this podcast is now going. There you go.
Down the toilet.
Oh man, down the toilet. Literally down the toilet. All right. Well, on that note, let's move to, I think, pretty much our last one. And it's my wife got me. So, well, let me back up. I've had the Leatherman Juice, which I really liked, as like just like a pocket knife. It had just some really useful features inside of it. Nothing too extraneous. Like I use pretty much everything in there, except for like the leather punch tool thing, which I did use as a lever or mini pry bar at one point and broke the tip off of it. And from that point on, it's been this little like sharp bit that was just like every time I put it in my pocket, it's just like, catching it on my finger. And I tried to file it down, but it just didn't work. And so this little thing has been like that for probably 2 years now. And I kind of forgot about it because I just stopped carrying it with me. And I always had it just like in the car or in my field bag if we were on the field or something like that. But I kept telling my wife I want to get it replaced. Now, I know that you can send off a Leatherman to get fixed to Leatherman. I mean, I think they are lifetime guaranteed, but I just never did that, right? Anyway, my wife decided to go get me a new one, and she got me the Leatherman Skeletool, which, to be honest, if I'd seen this in the store, it wouldn't have been my first choice. It just looks too weird and crazy, but now I love it, right? Like it's sitting in my pocket right now, and it's amazing. And one of the things I really like about it, well, first, it's a simple tool. And she got me the Topo Skeletool, which is, there's nothing topo about it. It's just got a topo pattern on the blade, which is kind of cool, but basically useless. I mean, it's not doing anything for you, but it's just kind of neat to have. And they drilled out a bunch of holes in the thing. I think that's why it gets the name Skeletool, but that really it makes it look weird, but it helps to reduce the weight. This thing is light as can be. And it's really cool. I don't know if the holes have any special meaning with their size or anything like that, but that's just a neat thing. It's got a carabiner on one end that doubles as the bottle opener. So you can actually hang it off of something if you want. Yeah, it's pretty neat. But one of the cool things about it is the screwdriver bits. And I thought when I first saw it, this is a little janky. It's a little weird, but there's a little thing that you depress on one of the arms to actually remove the screwdriver bit. And you can flip it around and have a different size like Phillips had on one end. And it's a flat bit. And if you look at the website that I linked, on the left side of the tool, you can kind of see in the other arm is the other bit, the flathead bit, the standard bit. So you can pull that out of there and put that bit in there. Well, what makes that really cool is, and I didn't buy this yet. My wife didn't even see it because I guess they didn't sell it at REI where she bought it. But you can get as an accessory a bit kit, like a full bit kit for this Leatherman. And it's got all these different types of bits with different ends and attachments and sizes. And it's like $25 or $24 for a bit kit that you can get to put different bits on a multi-tool. And I was like, that is super cool.
That's handy.
Yeah, it's really handy. So, and I think there's there's a bit driver extender even. Mm-hmm. And there's just all kinds of neat little things that you can get for this. So I thought that was a step up in multi-tool functionality because I like the simpler ones. I don't like one that's got 75 different things that it does because more often than not, I'm just using like the 5 or 6 that it really does.
Yeah.
But with this bit replacement, I'm probably going to pick up that bit kit and just have it easily accessible to me because, we live in an RV now. Sure, I can go down into one of the bays where I have all my tools. I've actually got an organizer and a whole big thing down there. But do I need to pull out the whole drill driver to do something? Or can I just grab my Leatherman and stick the bit in there that I need and do what I need to do real quick? That sounds pretty handy to me.
No, it sounds very handy. I'm looking at it here, and I've never been a multi-tool kind of guy, but ever since I was 11, when my grandfather gave me one, I've had a Swiss Army knife, but a small one, the Tinker it's called, which instead of the corkscrew at the bottom, it's got a Phillips head. screwdriver. Mm-hmm. And I've always kept that in my pocket because I'm always trying to fix things. There's a doorknob that's loose, pop it out, fix it. Just constantly doing things like that, and have ever since I was a little kid. And then, like you just alluded there, the multi-tools that have too many things don't do any of them particularly well. But having having replaceable bits like that, I could see being really handy, because that's been one of my gotchas. One of the things that always bugs me about that Tinker is that every now and then I need a smaller Phillips head or a bigger Phillips head, but not the size that's built into it. And I have no recourse. And then I got to go into the toolbox. So I can see that being really handy. I'm also looking at the website here, and I see they come in different colors. Which one did you get?
The one I have is the black one, the black Skeletal. Yeah, the color is Topo. That's the one I got. If you look at the actual link that I put up, it's the Topo Skeletal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I Googled Topo Skeletal and it took me to one, but not with not the same one that you're talking about. Yeah,
and I didn't actually realize there were other Skeletools until I just went here now when I was looking for this link to put in our show notes. So this is the Topo Skeletal in particular, and it says compact ultralight 5 ounce right on top of it, which is pretty cool. And like I said, she got this one because, I'm an archaeologist, and it had a little topographic thing on the, we're talking a lot about mapping today, but it has a little topo map on the blade, which is kind of cool. But it's just a neat pocket knife. It's not too big. It's nice and smooth in my pocket. It's not heavy. I like the bits. I thought the bits I had two opinions on the bits when I first pulled it out. I was like, oh, that's neat. I'm totally going to lose that, but that's neat. But then the one that's in the handle really sticks in the handle, and it's easy to get out, but it's also a really tight fit, and just kind of clicks in. And same with the one in the end, it really clicks in nicely. I thought maybe it would fold in and out of the way, but it doesn't. It's always out. So you just have to kind of spread your tool out just a little bit just to use it, and then you just press down on a little piece right on the end there, and the bit comes right out. You can feel the click. You can spin it around and put it in. So that was one thing, is I thought I was going to lose them, and they wouldn't be too functional. The second thing is, one of the things I really like about my Leather and Juice is the Phillips head it's interestingly shaped, right? There's only one Phillips head, but it's really tight to a point, and I can practically tighten the screws on my sunglasses with that thing. It comes to such a tight point, but at the same time, it's got a nice thick end on it as well. So for those deeper screws that are like the number 2 screws and a little bit bigger, I can hit those as well with that thing, and I can do it all with one bit. And it was just really functional. And I was thinking, this one's not like that, right? The 2 bits that this comes with, it's almost not big enough, and it's almost not small enough. It's like right there in the middle for both of them, but with the ability to buy the bit kit and basically put whatever you want on there. And if you want to just have one of those other bits from the bit kit all the time in there, like maybe you work somewhere where you're constantly getting into something that's got a certain size, then just put that on there and leave it there, and you can even swap out the other one and the other handle and put something else in there too. There's no reason you have to keep that in there. So that's why I think this really makes this one a little bit next level. And I really like it. It's pretty
What's
cool.
that bit kit look like? Is it something that you're just going to toss in the bottom of your bag? Are the bits going to fall out on their own?
No, I think they're in there pretty tight. Yeah, if you go to that page that I link in the show notes, and Paul, for us, it's in Trello there. If you scroll all the way down to accessories, you can see the bit kit on the right, and then click on that. It's just like a little hard plastic, if not rubberized plastic kind of thing with the bits stuck inside of it. It looks like it's probably pretty tight. I like it. I like it a lot. It's 2 pieces actually, because it's I think it's God, how many is it? God, it's a bunch of bits. I think it's 20 of them actually. Yeah. So it comes in like 2 packs of 10, and each one of those bits has 2 ends. So you're really getting 40 attachments, which is kind of neat. So for $24, that's not too bad at all. No, and if you scroll down, it tells you what all of them are. You go anywhere from a square drive, Torx, eyeglass screwdriver specifically, Potsy, I don't even know what that is. Hex sizes, Phillips sizes, and screwdriver sizes. So pretty neat.
Yeah. Looking at it, doesn't have your pentalobe, so you're not going to open up the bottom of that MacBook, though.
Damn it. I knew it was missing something. All right. Is that what that's called? A pentalobe?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for that. Paul, we only have you know what? Let's take a break. And then I want to bring up Paul's kind of surprise gift that he got for himself at the beginning of the next segment. And then we'll announce the contest winner and talk about what the contest winners got for the holidays this year. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side and talk about that. Back in a second.
The Labor Day weekend sale is on at Tanger Outlets. Score up to 70% off at top brands like Nike Factory Store, Crocs, J. Crew Factory, Gap Outlet, and so many more. Refresh your wardrobe with the latest arrivals for less from all your favorite brands this Labor Day weekend. Tanger Outlets, always on trend, always on sale. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Archaeotech Podcast, episode 145. And Paul, you kind of got a little something for yourself for the holidays this year. Why don't you tell us all about it?
All right. So just before break, I had a project. I've had this project for a long time. I've kind of alluded to it on the on this podcast before, but it's a Raspberry Pi project I've been working on for years for controlling a total station. And I've finally gotten the programming to the point that I decided I wanted to build out the case. And so I've ordered a few different project cases online, and none of them have been quite exactly what I want. I want something big enough. I want to move the ports away from the Raspberry Pi, but I want them to be reasonably well protected from the weather. I want it to be able to hang on the side of the tripod so it's close to the total station. And I finally got fed up with trying and failing to find the right thing. So we've had this Robo 3D printer sitting in our office for about 5 years. It was given to my department by a family that had bought it for their kids. The kids literally printed out 3 things, said, okay, that's cool. And it sat in their New York apartment, taking up a lot of space. And they got fed up with it, so they gave it to the department. Nobody in my department has so much as looked at the thing, aside from moving it from one shelf to another shelf, just to get it out of the room. So just before the winter break, I took it home. I figured I'm going to learn how to 3D print. Now, I've never been a big fan of 3D printing. It always just somehow felt a little bit gimmicky to me. And I think I've mentioned before, I don't actually physically like the feel of most of the 3D printed objects I've held.
Right.
Something about the weight of the plastic and the texture of it bothers me. It's entirely irrational. It's like not liking a food because you don't like the texture, right? Yeah. I love the flavor, but oh my God, it's slimy. So, but I had some time, and like I said, I was fed up with not finding the right project box. So I got this thing and I brought it home and I tuned it and I cleaned it out and I fixed it up and I printed out a pretty good project box. I built it out in a website called Tinkercad, which is phenomenally easy. I've used it before. I've taught kids, 6th graders, how to use it to design replicas of Greek temples. So, I know it's a very usable tool. And oh my God, by the time I got this thing put together, I ordered the brass inserts for the screws and all this stuff, and it was just right. The printing wasn't on it though, because the PLA, the plastic spool that I had for it, the filament, was also sitting on that same shelf for 5 years and had soaked up a lot of moisture. So I futzed with it with different programs and such until I got as close as I could, but every now and then it would pop and things would ooze in weird ways. And then I thought, you know what? I'm having too much fun with this. I need to not fight against the tool and actually have a tool that So after Christmas, I got myself a 3D printer of my own. I got myself a Creality Ender 3 V2 3D printer. Now, this is a sub $300 model printer. You can get them on Amazon, a lot of different places. It's an open source one. So Creality is the company that came up with it. They sell their own kits. Other people sell theirs. If you go online, there's all sorts of Reddit threads about this particular printer. It's very well liked. I talked to my brother-in-law who got one for one of my nephews last year. My nephew printed out a 3D Mandalorian helmet for his Halloween costume. Yeah.
Nice.
So I know it's usable.
So what's the real quick then, what's the print area on this thing? What's the volume?
It's 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters. So 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, and it goes up to 25 centimeters. So it's not especially large. If I wanted to do something big, I'd probably have to do it in sections and glue them together. But, for this project box I don't need anything bigger than 200 millimeters. And I honestly don't think that I would need anything else bigger than that. The whole process tickled so many of my kind of scientific and design and programming pleasure points. I would design something in Tinkercad and print it, and it came out great. And I'd tweak a little thing, it came out even greater. And I kept on just playing with it. And so I've been just obsessed with this damn device over the last week since I got it.
I mean, Paul, I've only known you for a few years, and I could have told you would have been obsessed with this thing. I'm surprised you weren't immediately wanting a 3D printer when they started getting more affordable, because you just seem like the kind of guy that would love a 3D printer.
Yeah, no, I know. And if you see my workbench, you see all the tools and the specialty tools for like weird stuff working on this thing. I've got a drill press sitting on my tiny workbench because at some point I decided I needed a drill press. I mean, it's a cheap Harbor Freight one, but I use it a lot. And this just went right down the same vein. I know you've used them before. And like I said, I'm using it for this project box. So it will have an archaeological end result at some point here if I get my program, squared away into proper shape. That goes back into the whole thing with checking the magnetic declination and everything.
Yeah.
You've used them. I seem to remember you talking about certain projects that you were going to do with a 3D printer that you had at the now I can't think of the name of the place in Reno that you were working out of forever.
At the Collective. The Reno Collective. Yeah. I mean, I used it fairly often. I had a number of different things I was doing. I'm still thinking about a project that I basically prototyped as an add-on for pin flags, but and I'm still very interested in doing that. I've just kind of lost the thread on that for a little bit, but there's so many applications for a 3D printer, and you mentioning this one, and hopefully we'll drop that link in the show notes for this one you got, because I've been looking for something that's probably about that size, probably about that price, because I don't want to go crazy with it, that I can actually travel with easily in the RV, because there's any number of circumstances I've already encountered since just June, since I've owned this thing, where I could have like 3D printed a part or a thing or something that I needed. Like we had this tiny little... when you open the main door of a typical RV, you've got the door and then a screen door that's basically right there with it. And ours there's a little plate on the inside of the main door that has just like a little spring action lever. And when the screen door goes up against it, it clicks. It clicks in, and there's just a tiny little tab that basically holds the screen door attached to the main door so you can open them together. Well, that damn little clip just broke off one time, like 2 months ago. And it was just, it's the kind of thing that's just going to break if you just, hit the doors together too hard or something like that. But I'll be damned if it's not impossible to find that freaking plate for a replacement. But if I had a 3D printer, I could take some measurements with some calipers and probably have one, printed up by the end of the day. Right. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't even be that big a deal. Right. And my wife has commented on the quality of 3D prints before that I brought home. And, I made her a little stand for her Apple Watch that she still uses to this day. It's sitting right next to the bed. But she's complained about that. Like, I don't like how gritty it feels and stuff like that. You know what? That's just because I'm lazy, right? A lot of people start like that, but you can sand these down, hit it with some 120 or something like that and sand these things down, spray paint it with something if you want, or paint it like regular, follow the Virtual Curation Laboratory on Instagram. Bernard Means, he has students 3D printing artifacts and all kinds of stuff, and then they'll sand them down and hand paint them, and they look and feel just like the original artifacts. Well, I mean, they don't feel like it if it's like metal or bone or something, but what I mean is, the texture and the real thing, and because they sand it down, it's nice and smooth, and you just get rid of that bumpiness. Because if you've seen any 3D prints, it's layer by layer by layer, and that has a textural feel to it, but you can knock that down and really give it a nice quality feel.
Yeah. So that thing that you were just saying though about the little clip, that's where I'm finding it's going to be most useful, is just all these stupid little parts, a little bracket for this, a little adapter for that. I would spend hours looking for just the right thing that maybe I, on McMaster car or something that then I could maybe file down in a way to make it fit in certain things. No. I'll just spend 15 minutes in Tinkercad, mock it up, put it through the slicer and knock it out over an hour on the 3D printer. And that's what I've been doing for last week. So soon my entire house is going to be full of little white and orange plastic layered pieces of this and that, but I'll be happy about that.
I'll tell you what, too, if you're doing something, Paul, like you did, where you're assembling something and you said you brought the screws and things like that. I learned how to 3D print from a guy who actually, it was his 3D printers at the Reno Collective that he brought in. He had two of them. And it was the UltiPro 2.0 or something like that. Pretty high-end 3D printers. They're $2,500 a piece or something.
Right. Those
are really nice. And the software that you use to control them, you have, and I don't know what the software looks like for the one for yours, but you have you typically have a lot of flexibility in resolution and, what the inner matrix of it looks like. And that has an effect on not only your print speed, but also the amount of material that you use and like the print quality, so if you want something that's thicker and more durable, you probably want to, put a tighter matrix on the inside of it. And if you've got something that's got a lot of detail, you're going to probably want a finer resolution to where it's basically making more layers per inch than, or per centimeter, whatever the metric is. So you got to look at stuff like that. But also he said, like, if you're putting stuff into this, like he said, you got to be really careful and maybe do like a little test panel with your sized holes in it for like screw holes or something like that. Because if you're not using screws, if you're using like machine screws that you just plan on inserting through the hole, that's one thing. If you're using a sheet metal type screw or something like that you can kind of work through the hole, then it really doesn't matter what the size is as long as it's close, you'll get through it anyway. But if you're using like a machine screw or something, like he was making some really fine detail stuff. He said with that PLA, you really got to be careful with it because he was trying to measure it right to with the calipers and get it, within a few, as close as he possibly could. But that PLA kind of expands just a little bit, right? Because it's hot, heated plastic. And so your holes are going to be a little tighter than you expect. So you might have to expand that out just a little bit. So you got to kind of play with it. Don't spend hours designing something and then spend 24 hours printing it up only to find out that your holes are too small. Now, you might be able to just drill them out.
That's what I did with all the holes that I had on my on the original project box because I had that drill press sitting right there. So it was a really easy process. But that's something that I noticed between that older printer that I was using and that very old PLA and the new printer. The old one, I had to sand to get the parts to fit together. I had to drill to get the inserts to fit into the drill holes, into the screw holes. I had to do a bunch of little like massaging after the fact. The new one, anytime I've had to make two parts fit together, like a glove, just unbelievable how tightly they fit.
Nice. All right. Well, with that, I think it's time to announce our contest winners and to talk about what our contest winners got actually. So I think we'll talk about that first. And at the very end, we'll announce the winners. So I'm going to go through these a little quick. We'll have links to them in the show notes or links to their comments because one of them, is interesting. So, and I'm just going to go down the line. One of our attendees, Amy here, she actually put two things on. One, I really want to buy right now. And she actually heard us talking about this on the, I think it was on the gift episode and messaged on wherever we have our, stuff on Facebook and was like, oh, I totally bought this for my son. I'll talk about that in a second. I'll talk about the first one right now though. She said she bought her son got her a Carhartt hybrid backpack. And let me click on this again and take a look at it. It looks pretty neat, actually. Carhartt is a good material, of course. It's not going to be, I don't think it's leather or anything like that, but it's definitely what's his water repellent tote bag that converts into a backpack. So just looks like a neat bag. This says it's a women's water repellent tote bag. I don't know what makes it a women's bag. Looks like you could basically use it for anything, but I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like this. It's not very expensive. Comes in a few different colors and it's just a nice bag. So that's pretty neat.
So she says she's going to be taking a class on wild edibles, stone napping, and prehistoric fire making.
Yeah,
I'm sure that this kind of a bag would be useful for something like that.
I'm sure of it. So, and then the other thing that she mentioned that we'll also link to, just because I want everyone to have one so I can interact with them when I get one. But she said she got her son an Oculus Quest 2. Now, I've seen her posting about this on Facebook, so I don't know how much her son is using it right now. But she says she got her son an Oculus Quest 2, and it sounds pretty cool. And I've actually been trolling that website a lot in the last couple of weeks. And
I'm shocked.
Oh, man, I mean, but you know what? I haven't even been looking at the games. I've been looking at the productivity stuff, and because I'm always thinking about my office setup in the RV, and having something like this that essentially connects to my computer and allows me to use my programs and things, but display them in a, I keep thinking of Matrix 2. Matrix 2 was the movie nobody liked because it had no beginning or end. It was basically the middle of Matrix 1 and 3. Mm-hmm. But you know what the best part of Matrix 2 was? You got to see the inner workings when they went into that city, whatever the heck that was called, in the middle of the earth, right? Down near the core where it's still hot. When they went down into that city, and you could see like the air traffic control guys, for lack of a better word, in this super futuristic environment, but really they're sitting there in rags and they're plugged into the Matrix, right? But they're just in this framework. But what they see is this whole nice, computerized thing. Well, that's the kind of stuff you can do with this. Maybe not quite to that level, of course, but some of the productivity stuff on this, just like extending out your desktop and having this 3-dimensional, unlimited number of screens and sizes and things that you could do to interact with your programs and things that you're doing. Honestly, that's what kind of gets my wheels turning. I don't really care about the games. I'm sure the games are fun and would be, entertaining, but I don't have time for that. So, I'm not going to mention the comment that you made on Zencaster, Paul.
That's why I didn't say it out loud.
We'll just leave that one. If you want to co-host this show, let me know, and then you can see all the fun stuff behind the scenes. But anyway, I'm interested to see now. I'm interested to see what Amy does with the Oculus Quest, because she says secretly she will be touring some awesome places while he's not using it, or finding some archaeology games. I'm really curious to see what they've got on there in that vein and how she gets along with it. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So Isaac Eula, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his last name. We've talked to him before.
Been a guest on our show.
He has been a guest on our show. He's calling this a gift because it arrived right before Christmas, but he got a Livox, or is it Livox? Livox Avia LiDAR unit for the lab. Says he's got it rigged up with an external battery and a tripod connected to his Linux laptop, used for digitizing landscapes, DEMs, and for scanning buildings and features. As far as he knows, it's the cheapest way to get high precision LiDAR data, even if you have to DIY it a bit. Says he's working with it over the next few months. He sent a screen capture video of some of the first results. It's about a 10-second scan looking at his garage. It's on YouTube, so we'll link to it.
Yeah,
and send it over to you guys. And it's pretty cool. So that's pretty neat. A LiDAR unit that he just used out of his garage. That's where we're at today.
Yep.
That's pretty neat.
It is.
Another one was from a listener named Richard, and he commented on Facebook, and for some reason couldn't add a photo, but he did talk about, he followed an ad on YouTube. I don't know why. You make them like 10 cents every time you click on that ad. So that's good, I guess. But he followed an ad on YouTube saying they would send him a $75 assault tactical backpack for free, but was $20 in shipping. We don't have a picture or anything about that, but I was talking to him about it on Facebook, and he said he likes it. It's pretty cool. Fit the rules for the contest. I wish we could see the tactical backpack. That would be really nice, and I want to know what a tactical backpack actually looks like. I'm guessing it has a lot of pockets and things.
A lot of molly strips.
Yeah, right. So, and then the last one here was from Richie Cruz, who has been a co-host on this podcast. And he said he got himself a weight vest for Christmas. And this is because Richie is a psychopath. So Richie Richie jogs all the time, and which totally surprises me, because Richie smokes like a chimney sometimes, and but he can run circles around pretty much anybody, and he can bound up hills in the high desert like nobody's business. But he got himself a weight vest that he can run in, because screw people who need a weight vest to run in. I don't need a weight vest. I'm wearing a weight vest all the time. So he got him a weight vest to run in so he could, basically do strength training, and then, in his words, bound up the hills even faster this coming field season. So screw you, Richie, is all I got to say to that.
He's just rubbing it in now.
I know, right?
Hey, Chris, before we go, there's I was just checking my Twitter feed here because, we've all gotten good at doing something surreptitiously off on the side while we were pretending to be involved on a video conference. We're not on video here. I'm just making a joke. And I have two very late entries here that deserve mentions. One is from Zenobi-wan. These are both coming through on my Twitter feed. So Zenobi-wan says that she got herself a personal Agisoft license to process 3D models of artifacts and sites. And that is awesome. I mean, I wonder how much a personal Agisoft license costs right now. They're not cheap. So that is on par with me getting that 3D printer for myself for a gift. So that is really cool. And I'm sure will come into great use. I've seen some of the work that she's done before. I can't remember if it was 3D, but I've definitely been following her for a couple of years on Twitter and always enjoy her tweets.
Well, as a quick aside, Zenobi was the first person I ever signed a copy of my book for. I saw her at the SAAs the year that I got my book came out, because it was right near the SAAs, or I think it was the SAAs. And she came up. I was sitting at the publisher's booth for Left Coast Press, and she came up and got her book signed, and she was the first one I ever signed. So that's pretty cool.
You know what? And I screwed up. It wasn't two new ones. Another one was Dr. Archaeomanda liking Zenobi-wan's comment.
Nice. Nice. There you go. All right. Well, I know Richie, because he's been a volunteer on the APN, already has a lifetime membership, and Amy is a paid member of the APN, so we might be able to get her that for free. I'm not sure about Isaac or Richard. I'd have to check the roles, but Paul, do we have a winner based on some of the entries that we received?
Yeah, I love what Isaac has to say. I want to see that, but I think for sure, earnestness and the sweetness of involving her family in this, I think that Amy's got to get that that prize.
Nice. I agree. So Amy, I will be connecting with you, and I'm probably just going to change your membership behind the scenes, and you will no longer get charged for it. So anybody else that's interested in being a member of the APN, head over to arcpodnet.com/members. I believe it's $7.99 a month now or something for all our membership levels. We don't have any. We have one level now. We used to have 3. It was overly complicated. We simplified it and said, let's just have one. And, one of the nice things is, you heard ads on this show, but if you want to get your episodes a little bit sooner and hear them ad free, and really what you're doing is supporting us and helping keep the lights on over here, is just become a member, and you can get your episodes on our website. You don't subscribe on like iTunes, because obviously they're episodes just for you. So, and any bonus content we have also gets released on that same feed. So our ad-free episodes are available on our website to our members. You also get admission to our Slack team, our members only Slack team. And over there, I'd like it to be a lot more active. The more people we get over there, the more active it will be, but you have access to talk to the hosts, and Amy's pretty active on that over there, which is really great. So you have access to the hosts and other members to just keep the discussion going about your favorite podcast episodes. So thanks everybody for the entries. Feel free to keep telling us what you got for Christmas or holidays or whatever you support, or whatever you got yourself this winter. Maybe just while you're off for the field season, some new piece of tech or something like that you think you can use for archaeology. I'm really interested in hearing stuff that might not be outwardly archaeological, like you didn't buy it at, forestry supply or something like that, but you picked it up and you found a use for it for archaeology. I'm always interested in those techs that cross those boundaries. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I think we'll have to start a new segment starting with the next episode called "What Little Thing Did Paul Design and Print This Week?"
Brackets. More and more brackets.
So many brackets.
I've now got a bracket that holds other brackets.
Oh my God. Nice. All right. Well, as Paul goes insane, we will end this episode. And again, thanks everybody for joining us. It's been a great 2020. Just despite the pandemic, I guess we had some good episodes. We got some good stuff done, and let's keep it going for 2021. So that's it for me. And thanks everybody.
Take care, everybody. Wash your hands. Let's get out of this.
Thanks for listening to the Archaeotech Podcast. Links to items mentioned on the show are in the show notes at www.arcpodnet.com/archaeotech. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com and paul@lugal.com. Support the show by becoming a member at arcpodnet.com/members. The music is a song called Off Road and is license free from Apple. Thanks for listening.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV Traveling America, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to archpodnet.com/members for more info.
The Labor Day weekend sale is on at Tanger Outlets. Score up to 70% off at top brands like Nike Factory Store, Crocs, J. Crew Factory, Gap Outlet, and so many more. Refresh your wardrobe with the latest arrivals for less from all your favorite brands this Labor Day weekend. Tanger Outlets, always on trend, always on sale. Plan your trip at Tanger.com.
Are you ready to launch your career to new heights? Visit careers.dish.com/technician now and uncover a world of exciting opportunities waiting just for you. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, Dish has everything you need to thrive. Don't wait any longer to kickstart your next opportunity. Apply today and join the Dish family where innovation meets opportunity. Visit us online at careers.dish.com/technician. Your future starts now.